Welcome to another episode of the Finest Style podcast, where we celebrate the moments that define success. Today with me, I've got Jennifer Hughes, a remarkable leader who carved her own path in the world of engineering and manufacturing. And her journey is a testament to power of resilience, adaptability, and embracing unique opportunities. So Jennifer, welcome to the Finest Style podcast.
Thank you very much for having me.
Before we dive into your story, please introduce yourself and Transicon, the company that you work with.
Hi, Jennifer Hughes. I'm the General Manager at Transicon Limited. So we're a system integrator, so predominantly electrical engineering. So similar to many of the guests that you've had here on the podcast, you've probably either eaten something, driven something, had some water delivered by a Transicon control system. So we're everywhere, but you probably haven't heard of us.
Yes, but it's quite how many people you've got at Transicon? Is it about 50, 60?
So we're actually 40 strong at the moment.
40 strong.
Split across the engineering and the manufacturing and installation teams, delivering mainly in the UK, supporting the manufacturing base that's here. Yeah,
and it is a family business that you've joined back in 2012, was it?
It was, 2012, at the start of 2013, I think, that I came back into the fold.
Yes.
Having worked at aerospace and defence PLC within their accounts department.
Yes, it was accounts department, and you came into the company and you basically took over the accounts.
That's right. I joined Transicon as a company accountant. So it was at a time when it doesn't matter what size of business you are, there's now much greater reporting requirements. More stakeholders require more information, whether that's your banking facilities or whether it's to do with health and safety. There's far greater sort of administration requirements. So I joined the family business to help them out in that area, to provide sort of more robust forecasting and support to the administration side.
So how did you find it first joining? Obviously from the outside, your father has led this business for many years before that. So what did it feel like coming in?
So, I mean, Transicon's been going for over 55 years now. My father led the management buyout that took place in 1999, along with a few of the current board members. So he's been doing this, and we've been delivering these control systems for a while. There's kind of two factors. First of all, transitioning from being a small part in a very large machine that, coming from a large engineering business, that transition into a small company is quite difficult. And I see that with a lot of people starting now, the transition to having to look after a lot more. You do get, generally speaking, more autonomy, but you spend a few weeks wondering, well, who does that? And the answer is, well, you do. On that side. And I came from working very long hours, sort of 70-hour weeks, to drive and to get on in my previous role. And I almost felt guilty when I first started at a smaller business, because we pride ourselves on people having a work-life balance. Unless we're installing and commissioning on site, which are long hours because we're fitting in with manufacturers' downtime, we try and work a 39-hour week, and we shove people out the building. But I felt a sense of guilt for actually quite a long time about that, thinking that I was doing part-time hours. And then there was the second factor was the family dynamic. So I left home when I was 18, and I forged my own way. And then coming back into the fold, I had to learn who my parents were as individuals at work, as adults at work, rather than
mama and papa.
I left when I was 18, and that was still how I saw them, because people don't change in your mind unless you see them in a different way. So
it's seeing them, and also you coming in as a daughter, and how do they interact with you on a daily basis, and how other people look at it as well.
Exactly. So you have to learn who you all are as adults and learn to respect that. And it takes time, and you have to, for me, I had to respect what my father had done and what they'd achieved as a company prior to me getting there, because it's very easy to come in and say, this looks completely right. Why are you doing it like that? And whereas actually when you sit back and you begin to understand the business more, you see why it is the way it is. And I gained new respect for my parents as people with, working
business people,
with them.
who run their business,
But it definitely took time, and you have to put kind of almost those safeguards in place to maintain those relationships and be able to get on at work as well as at home.
It's interesting because you came there with this massive experience from all the previous companies you work with, but initially that was not on the cards for you in terms of the career, because you went through quite a difficult time, I would say, because it always is when you join the uni, and it was law. Was it law?
It was, yes. It was.
And it didn't work out in terms of you just decided it's not for you, which is always difficult. Maybe could you tell me a little bit about that period?
Yeah, I mean, I went to sixth form college at a time when the education system channeled kids into university. That was the aim at the time, was to get as many people university educated as possible. So I remember being given my UCAS form, and I filled it in diligently. I chose law on a bit of a whim.
Because why law?
I think it was Ally McBeal. I'd seen the TV shows, I'd seen the movies, and I thought, I'm going to rule the world as a lawyer. So I chose this course, and I got to university. And to be honest, I floundered. I didn't really enjoy the course that much, and what I really wasn't suited to was that part-time learning. That's not the way I learn. I'm not suited to academia in that way. So I chopped and changed a bit. I thought, maybe it's the course. I'll try history. And during my second year, I got a part-time job in an insurance broker, reconciling customer accounts for the underwriters. And I thought, I'm so much better at this. And
enjoy it more, the numbers,
But, and I was much more suited to that. I mean, university was amazing for the
social
independence. I had a really fun time. I made amazing friends, and I learned how to do things like pay council tax. But I thought, this isn't for me. And actually I got some amazing advice at that time, because when I was umming and ahhing about dropping out, because I thought, this really isn't, I'm not doing well, I'm not performing well here. Somebody said to me, it was my boyfriend's father, and he said, well, you can do what you want, but you need to make sure you have a plan. You need to know where you want to be in 5 years' time and take steps to get there. So don't leave without a plan. I thought, right, okay, I'll be an accountant. I was enjoying the numbers at work. I thought, I can do this, and I got a job at Game Stores Group in their purchase ledger department, and I started going to college at weekends. And I worked towards my accountancy qualification.
And it was pretty much straight away transition, or did you have any gap in between? Did you went for it?
I went for it. I dropped out at the end of
because I think that's one thing you mentioned. It's like not to have too many gaps. You need to know what you're doing with your life, because you're basically losing out on on the opportunities that
you need to be working towards something. And so I found the job fairly quickly after dropping out, and started my qualification, and then I moved on. I got promoted as time went on. And I ended up with a training contract to finish my qualification, and I 4 years later became a chartered accountant.
Congratulations, because it's been a journey. Because how do you during when you're in the middle of it, you can't see the end. So how do you go through this? How did you manage to go through that period of uncertainty? What kept you going?
Well, I think I did have my plan, and I loved the work that I was doing.
Before you got into it, that sort of
that transitionary time, I think it was that advice that really helped. And having family to talk to understand that it's okay to take a different path. If university isn't for you, that's okay. And I think that advice and support at the time was really important, because you do feel like a failure. When your friends are carrying on and they're getting their qualifications and their degrees, and you're leaving that process, the quitting I found very difficult. I'm not a quitter.
Yeah. It's difficult to reconcile it in your head. How do you do that?
But yeah, it was that job, and saying that I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying this.
Yeah. And then actually going through and gaining the qualifications and continue to learn. So that's basically your idea for your career now, because let's come back to the future or now. So you're a general manager since I think it was spring.
Yeah, it was spring this
Before
year,
that, you was the director,
yeah.
and well, it's all led through the pandemic. So we'll talk about that very shortly. But even now, what was quite amazing when you said you're now studying for, what was it?
So I've started an electrical engineering course.
Yeah.
Although I must admit, studying at weekends is much harder now than it was when I was in my 20s. Mainly because we're an electrical engineering company. What we do is actually we solve quite complex problems for our customers. Drives, controls, and automation isn't necessarily simple.
Yeah.
And with my new role, becoming a bit more customer facing, I fundamentally think that you need to understand your customers' problems to run a business, because that's what it's about, resolving your customers' problems. And so to do that, to feel more comfortable in those discussions, I'm doing electrical engineering part-time online course.
So basically when you need it, you just brush up on things. As you said, you have all the people around you who know their stuff, but you just want to have that. It's now, I think it's the who you are. You just have to know, don't you? Because some people wouldn't do the course. They would say, "Oh, I have people to understand this stuff." Yeah,
and we have an amazing engineering team at Transicon. I mean, the depth of knowledge within the department is awesome, and something that we're very proud of as a business. But for my own comfort, I'd like to have that level of understanding as much as anything.
And now we're gonna jump to the pandemic, because why not? We're just jumping future, past, but it all sort of comes together, because you was at the time when you joined the company, you was comfortable in your space, the accounting, you was doing a great job for many years. But then when the pandemic hit, suddenly, as you said, the management team were all...
They were all at risk.
They were all at risk, right? And the company had to keep going. There was stuff happening. And at that time, you stepped up.
Yeah, I mean, it was...
And it wasn't planned, and nobody asked you to do it.
No, it was. I remember that day, and it's actually listening and looking at the other podcasts. It's amazing how many people actually view the pandemic, and you see the way that they felt differently about themselves as a result of focusing and working through the challenges of that time. But we got into the office, and the directors weren't allowed to leave their house. We were supporting people in the utilities, the food production,
so a very key industries,
all of those key industries. So I sent everybody home, apart from the work. So it was me and the works. I actually did goods inwards for a while as well, because they were looking after somebody that was at risk. And it completely changed the way I felt about Transicon. So I had to put things in place, as things were changing constantly at the time. But it was putting communication methods in. So we're quite a traditional business. But it was all of a sudden we had to get used to video conferencing and trying to keeping the engineering teams and installation teams
connected
and together, because they could all work from home. If you're writing software or designing, you can do that from anywhere. But it was making sure that we kept those sort of communication channels open. We had a very large installation project that we were performing in France at the time when the legislative requirements were changing constantly.
It's hard to follow at the time. It's like, where do I look? Who knows? Nobody had the answers. Some things you had to make up.
Well, we ended up getting the embassy, the British embassy, involved, because we had people working and living in France for the summer. And they helped us by negotiating with the labour prefectures on their behalf, which enabled us to complete that work. But it took a lot of organisation to actually get people there and legal to get that work completed. And it was quite...
So what was your role in that bit?
a lot of telephone calls and supporting and being that base and getting everything organised so that we could complete that contract. It was, my role changed drastically at that time, running everything from on the day-to-day for the company.
So you become like a go-to person, whereas before you...
I know I was kind of fairly internally focused.
Yeah.
Although I was a director of Transicon at the time, helping drive the sort of the strategy and the analysis.
Yes.
I had we have an operations director. I had very little to do with the operations of the business, but it changed my love for the company as well. And I went from feeling like a director and strategist to a part owner. And things have changed since then.
I think it's probably also impacted the way the staff view you and the rest of the board directors, saying, Jennifer, when it comes to show, she shows up and she can step up. She doesn't shy away.
And I think especially in a family business, when you come in and it's Paul's daughter.
Yeah.
And
a woman as well.
Yeah.
Paul's daughter. It's a little harder. Yeah.
It's an amazing team at Transicon.
Yeah.
You always feel supported. We're quite close knit.
Yeah.
But it changed my confidence levels around those kind of decisions. So,
brilliant.
Yeah.
And that's why you've been given the GM role.
Yes.
And that also meant you have to let go some of the stuff, right? and funnily, you got your husband to work for the company now as well.
I got him in my clutches, and I've convinced him to come and take over the finances for Transicon. So it's a really transitionary period. I've not been doing the role for that long.
Yeah.
And Mark's coming in and is looking after the finances, and I'm doing my best to let go. Delegation has never been my strongest subject. I have a tendency to take more and more
on. Yeah. That causes also like stress, because you think you can do more and more, but then it's the point where, well, I can't.
And we're at a point where we're growing as a business, where we've developed a low risk obsolescence upgrade path that's led to a growth in the business, and I can't do everything that I was doing, as well as the focus of my new role. So I am delegating, and we have changed things. I had to change the structure a little. So previously we had a very flat structure where all of the engineering teams reported directly into our MD. And I've actually put 2 engineering managers in place, just so that the engineers can talk to someone who understands the problems that they're having technically, as well as the softer side of management. So to enable me to look after the day-to-day of Transicon, I felt we needed that in place. Where did you get this
idea from? Did you what did you just through looking at it, or previous company you worked for?
Previous companies, and the way that they were organised from an engineering perspective. We don't want a massive hierarchy in, because the beauty of a small company is that everybody. Yeah. But just to have that reporting line was very important to me for the engineering
It's
team.
interesting, like with the business leaders who stepped into family business and they worked elsewhere, there's a benefit to that, because you are exposed to other companies' ways of working. You see what works, what doesn't, and then you have almost like a different view of internal operations. Even all the years you've spent there, you probably noticed few things, and you was able to make a real impact on the ops. Yeah,
and I would say to anybody, if they do have their family business and they're thinking about, do go out and see other businesses. Yeah. There's things like the Maiden Group, where you can have a look at best practice and the way that other people do things. And having that experience outside of Transicon has enabled me to be more effective once I did join the family business. But it can be quite easy to get tied into a family culture. Yeah. Because you're used to it at home, growing up, it can be very easy to just fall in line. And so having that experience enables you to make your point a little better, I would say.
And in terms of like your advice for individuals who are considering alternative paths, just like you did, what would you say?
Well, for me, I'd say that just because you take a different path to reach your goal, it doesn't mean you're worth any less. And I think now there are so many more options that we're seeing, like degree apprenticeships and that one of the things that I'm really driving at the moment within Transicon is the expansion of our apprenticeship scheme. We're actually looking to engage more with schools so that we have an electrical installation and control panel build apprenticeship at the moment, but we're looking to expand that into a direct path into the engineering office. So we're engaging with schools to try and get more kids into this amazing career and realise that not all people are suited to academics. People learn differently. I know I certainly do. On the job is much better for me personally. And I want kids to see that there's a route into an amazing career that isn't necessarily straight through university. So, the kind of the failure, the quitting and dropping out of the degree at the time means that now I'm trying to put things in place to catch kids like that necessarily, so they don't have to go.
From your experience, that drives you as well to make the change. And thank you for being part of the mate community. And also, I can see it in you. You've got so much more to achieve, Jennifer, in this space. And make a real impact. So thank you so much for taking time to come and speak to me on the Finest Hour podcast. Maybe just a quickly source of inspiration, because I know we're running out of time, but I know there's somebody very interesting that you get in, because you're a festival goer.
I am. I love music and I love festivals. No signal and loud music is how I relax.
I love that.
But Fiona Stewart, she's the managing director of the Green Man Music Festival, which is in Wales, is a real source of inspiration for me. So it's it's still independent. It's sold out within 2 hours this year. It's got a gender, complete 50-50 gender split across all stages throughout the weekend. They have the Green Man Trust, which is charitable. It supports grassroots music and sciences, and they have their charitable arm that supported 10,000 people to date, and they put on one hell of a party. And I think it's really inspirational to see the direction that festival's and company and trust has gone in, and led by a woman. So it's
brilliant. I'm absolutely going to check this festival, and I hope to join one of the. But you'll have to let me know when the next tickets are selling, because I probably wouldn't know. But I love the festivals.
Probably 30th of September.
30th of September. Okay, that's coming up then. But it sounds really amazing. It's Green Man, not the Burning Man.
No, especially not this year.
Brilliant. Jennifer, thanks again for being on the podcast. I think, your story reminds us that success is shaped by this ability to adapt, innovate, and believe in your own unique journey, which you've had and continue to have. So thank you for watching this episode of The Finest Hour. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did, and please tune in for the next episode. And I'll see you next time. Thank you.